Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to ApprenticeSIP. I'm Luther Jackson, one of the co-organizers, along with Anita Gay and Orion Willis. So in our 5 years as a meetup group, we've been fortunate to develop a community that's really plugged in to all the latest trends in apprenticeship. And so thanks to our well-connected folks, we've learned about boot camps to educate employers about apprenticeship. We've learned about software development apprenticeships for citizens returning from incarceration. And earlier this year, transit industry apprenticeships that not only prepare workers for the job they're doing, but really promote career advancement. So in a world where everyone is seemingly talking about AI and machine learning, we're absolutely delighted today to be joined by Jennifer Robertson from Qwasar and hear about their new AI and machine learning apprenticeship. And Jennifer will also give us, I would call a kind of some realistic context about where the world is now and whether we're all ready for AI apprenticeship. So really looking forward to this conversation. So here's our agenda. I will lead us in very brief introductions, just name and organization and title. And then Jennifer will maybe give us an overview. She's got some slides, about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up for dialogue. That's always the kind of the heart of this discussion. Anita will do a wrap up and we'll be out by 5:30. So why don't we start with introductions? I'll just call on you and we'll go from there. Jennifer, start, please.
Yes, certainly, Luther. Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer. I'm the COO and co-founder of Qwasar. I have, I'd say probably 10 plus years in the K to gray space. So I've seen K-12 traditional higher ed and then nonprofit adult education. And currently trying to get more apprenticeships happening based in California.
Great, thank you. Anita.
I'm Anita Gay with Bay Area Video Coalition. We are an arts nonprofit in San Francisco. I am one of the co-organizers of this group.
Temple?
No title. I just love to see you guys, and the topic of this week sounds pretty interesting.
Good to see you. Hi, Orion.
Yeah, Orion Willis, TechSF, and ApprenticeSIP co-organizer. Good to see y'all.
Timothy?
Hey, my name's Tim. I'm a formerly incarcerated individual. I'm a fellow in the CROP organization here in Oakland that helps train formerly incarcerated people in tech careers. And I was actually referred to this meetup group by Zachary Moore from Checker. So, AI is in everything now. So I'm just, here to learn.
Yeah, we know him.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Zach's a great friend. Elena.
Hi, everyone. This is my first time for this meetup, and nice to meet everyone. I've been with professional services operations at TIPCO Software for over 10 years, and most recently at Cloud Software Group. Yes, I'm also curious about AI, and I've been taking some training online, but I feel that there is no way to. It's a continuous learning, so yes, I'm here for it.
Welcome. Good to see you. Rick.
Hi, I'm Rick Rafey. I am consultant in South Santa Clara, California, working for right now I'm working with Creating Coding Careers, which supports tech apprenticeships, mostly in California, but for veterans and for underrepresented groups. And every company, my role as somebody from Silicon Valley is helping find companies that want to engage in tech apprenticeships. And every company we've talked to this year brings up AI and not really with a clear concept of what they want to do with it. And so I've been looking forward to this conversation. I'm really glad you guys put this on.
Thanks. Good to see you. Peter?
Hey there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I haven't used my iPhone for Zoom for quite a while, so sorry my camera's not on. But I just saw your meetup. I do a lot of run some meetup groups, and been out of technology for a little while, but done a lot of different projects and some AI related in the past, and kind of curious about what's going on. And I saw your meetup and just wanted to learn what you're doing. So appreciate it.
Great. Yeah, thanks for joining. Erwin.
Hi, I'm Erwin Jankovic. I'm now retired from the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. We started, my team started an apprenticeship program back in 2002, and it's been running strong ever since.
Great. Good to see you again. Ken?
Hi. So I'm just browsing on Meetup and come across this interesting meeting. So I just want to get to know more.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us. And Rob.
Thank you.
Rob, are you able to unmute?
Unmute.
Oh, I see. Oh. Okay, I'll work on that, Rob. So Jennifer, why don't you kick it off?
Okay, sounds good. Let me share my screen here. We'll dive in. Okay, fabulous. So hopefully it should be a good discussion. Okay, so a little bit of agenda for what we can, or at least what I'm going to share today. So first of all, anytime I hear AI, I'm like, let's define that. What do you mean? Because it is a very, very, very broad term, and people do not mean the same thing at all. So that's the first thing. And then looking at, you know, AI skills, again, too broad of a term. I'm like, what do we mean by that? I'll share a bit about the AI machine learning apprenticeship we have, and certainly have been trying to get more of. I'll share a bit about the existing apprenticeships in AI machine learning, and then, you know, where are we going? And even that last part, where are we going? I actually threw in a slide at the total last minute because there were a couple updates that happened in the last like 4 or 5 days, and I was like, oh, I gotta throw these in here. I'll be honest, there's pluses and minuses. This is not going to be like a super rosy, awesome session. It's probably going to be a very realistic session, but that's the state of affairs. Okay, I will share a bit about Qwasar quickly and kind of what we do. We're founded in 2019. There's 2 other founders, and they are both the engineers on this founding team. We've won a bunch of awards, came out of like Berkeley and the like Citrus Institute, did some work with ICOR, the American Institutes of Research. Actually, we're in their cohort for apprenticeships for tech, which was great. Also worked with Jobs for the Future and trying to get more apprenticeships going in the areas we have. So we're still working on that, still going. Yeah, okay, so these are the other 2 co-founders you see on both sides of me. They're both French, come from a pretty interesting background. If you guys have heard of 42, School 42 is an international award-winning, very innovative model. We kind of built the next version of that. So yeah, just a bit about us. And here you go. You see some photos of some of the stuff we've built. This is some of the 42 campuses in Paris. We had one out in Fremont, but then it closed down. We opened Qwasar instead. We had an AI lab, a virtual reality lab, a self-driving car lab. We had all this fun stuff. Okay, so we have a learning platform. That's kind of the core of what we do. It's all project-based, it's all competency-based, it's all skills-based, it's very modern. It has things like auto-correction systems, automatic cheating detection systems, all this fun stuff that was long in place before LLMs came around. So, you know, I think embedding algorithms into learning has been something we've been doing for over a decade. So pretty interesting. Anyway, so, you know, part of what we've been doing is apprenticeships and trying to get people from, you know, where they are into tech jobs, but our focus has been on like really difficult subject areas. So things like embedded engineering, you know, really deep back-end software engineering, and AI machine learning. Not easy to do. Just leave it at that. It's not easy to do. Okay, so we're gonna start. What do we mean when we say AI? Okay, so if there's like one slide that you guys like memorize and take away with you, I hope it's this one. So there, when people say, "Oh, you know, I'm looking for an AI engineer," or "I'm looking for AI skills," or "I want, you know, people that know AI," I'm like, okay, we're going to break this down. There is AI literacy. This is like a very basic skill set, and it is essentially like you have an understanding of how AI works at a kind of a basic fundamental level. You can use ChatGPT, use Bard, use whatever, right? And like that's about it. You know, you're not going out and building artificial intelligence algorithms or predictive models. It's just you can use the tools that are out there. You know, maybe it's video generation platforms, all kinds of stuff like that's it. I think at the next level we're saying, okay, you are then building applications on top of existing models, right? So it's not that you are a machine learning engineer where you are building large language models or you're building the algorithms that are used in computer vision. It's that you are building on top of those existing tools. So the skill set, why this is important, because the skill set is different, right? It's that they're tools that exist for machine learning, for executing machine learning, and you are building on top of them. So, you know, again, it's not that you have a heavy like algorithmic background. It's more like you probably need to know how to work with APIs and maybe like build interfaces. And you might actually be like part full stack developer. You know, you kind of, again, understand the basics of like machine learning and how they work. Maybe you can tweak some of these LLMs, maybe not. But that's not the same thing as like you are actually building prediction models and algorithms. So we call that AI embedding. I think there's probably more terms that are coming out. Or honestly, just what we're seeing is a lot of things are just like software engineering. You need to know how to work with LLM APIs or you know, cloud vision APIs or other stuff. So we'll call it that. Then there's a category where you are actually developing artificial intelligence models. This could be like predictive models. Different examples could be like you're building a machine learning fraud detection model, right? Where you are predicting whether a transaction is or isn't fraud. It's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. It could be that you are working on like medical devices or medical tools or software that's used. Super interesting example is the use of a software program while doctors are doing colonoscopies that help detect cancer earlier. So again, that is prediction models. It's you are working with enormous amounts of data that have essentially identified, you know, what spots or what parts are or are not, were or were not cancerous. Fascinating. You know, or that you're working on building large language models, which are very complex and advanced. So, you know, even within machine learning, like, and you're building models, there's a range of, you know, relatively simple and straightforward to insanely complex. And you have, you know, mass neural networks and it's real deep learning. So that, you know, even within that, there's a range. Then, this is probably my favorite, is you have multimodal, where you are working with different models, like, and using them to bounce off each other, right? So you could give a prompt to one LLM, it spits out something, you take it, you send it to another one that gives you something else, that you send it to another one. And so you're building I don't know, like an orchestra almost. And then you have the entire category of AI infrastructure, where you are building the AI tools themselves. You're not building the models, you're not doing like the algorithmic part, you are building the tools that, you know, a lot of these things sit on. So this is important. Slide of like, where are you? So the one that we're doing, we're focusing on is that AI development part, the one of the difficult parts. But there you go. Okay, so you know, what are these kind of? We talk about AI machine learning engineers. What are the things they need to know? Like, what are their actual skill sets? Obviously, a lot of algorithms. You also need an ethical compass. You need to know how to train data, process data, store data. You know, what are ETL pipelines? Like, where is it? How you taking it in? How you processing it? What are you doing? with it, like what's the point of your model and how does it work? So the whole sort of understanding around that, you have to understand data at a very fundamental level and like how computers treat data. And that has a big impact on things like speed, memory, processing power. Like, you know, realistically, you cannot put a large language model on this. This is too small, right? And so there's implications for like how much data you can process on small devices versus, you know, massive, you're in data centers. But you need to know how to program. And then I think you need to know your specialty area, right? So are you working with natural language processing? Are you working with computer vision? Are you working in fraud detection, right? Like what is your kind of specialty area? Are you working with large language models? So that's kind of how we see it. I'm going to switch and then talk about like how our apprenticeship is structured and kind of how things work. So we generally front load. We have 3 months of RTI, like related technical instruction, and then it's 3 to 9 months on the job. If it's a registered program, like the company actually wants to do registered, then obviously it's been 9 months because we do generally minimum of 12. So that is largely 90% you're actually working as an engineer, and then 10% spent learning. And even at that, I think a lot of that learning is very much embedded in the job. Okay, so on that 3 months, what do? We have a core curriculum, and then essentially we customize the curriculum, or certainly the final 2 projects that somebody's going to work on based on the tech stack for the company. So if companies like, look, I'm using AWS SageMaker, you know, they need to know how to use that. They're like, great, okay, that's what they're going to use. You know, if they're using all kinds of NoSQL databases, they're like, cool, great. You know, that's what they're going to have to use in these projects. So I think companies kind of like that same programming language, you know, they're using C++, they're using Python, all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of how it's structured. We make them write a lot of code, like everything to do with that 3 months training is all project-based because you have to know how to deliver, you have to know how to work on a team. So it's not lecture-based, it's all competency-based. Okay, so what does that actually translate to, right? Like what are they actually learning? They will work with Python, PyTorch, Jupyter, large and complex data sets, possibly TensorFlow, but it's looking at a lot of optimization and a lot of algorithms. And then as they specialize, they're going to have to pick something. They might work with CUDA, which is one of NVIDIA's tools. They might work on like an autopilot project. They might work on a medical device prediction. Yeah, again, fraud detection is a great example. All kinds of stuff. They might work with an LLM's API. They might be fine-tuning LLM models. So, you know, it's kind of a specialization element. And then as they move onto the job, they're getting into like more deeper level, like really deeper level, different kinds of neural networks. Like, and that's like moving into deep learning. It could be into like how LLMs are actually built, even though you're not necessarily building them yourself. So it's kind of all sorts that happening there. And then we do make them do like technical interviews, like practice, role play technical interviews and role play behavioral interviews. Everything's online. You know, we like to have cohorts. They get a certificate at the end. Generally, companies pay their recruitment or training fee. You get the idea. Okay, I do want to talk about existing AI ML apprenticeships. Like we've certainly been around the space for a while, and there's a big demand. So companies know that they're moving towards AI, right? There's no 7 ways about that. They like all the experts, executives, all sorts, they are expecting their own employees to use it. They're changing their job description of how they're hiring. So there's plenty of stats here that kind of show that. But, there is only one AI machine learning apprenticeship that we know of right now, and that's it at LinkedIn. Which I'm hoping I'm wrong, but we've been in the scene for a long time and have not seen any others. There used to be one at Pearson, it disappeared probably 4 years ago. So it's hard. I think, Rick, you were saying you've seen a lot of companies where they're like, oh yeah, they're interested, but they don't quite know what yet. 100% agree. right? It's been very difficult to get people to kind of know like, hey, yes, I need machine learning talent. Yes, I'm willing to consider an apprenticeship. So it's just not been easy. Like in full transparency, it's not been easy for us as a company. There's undoubtedly the demand for the talent and a significant lack of supply, which like it's a great case for an apprenticeship. You know, it's all skills-based, it's competency-based, it makes sense, but it's not easy. So we're hoping to change this list and to grow it significantly, but it again, like it's not easy. I think I'm going to share, yeah. The other thing that's not easy is that the opportunity is not evenly distributed geographically. There is a demand, like there's no doubt that the number of jobs and the growth trajectory for machine learning engineers, AI engineers, has grown, is grown, and will continue to grow. Like all the data is there to show that. But if you look at the map here that kind of shows where the opportunities are, I mean, lucky as we're in California, right? That's where a lot of them are. But it's big domination of West Coast, I would say. And then, you know, I think somewhere around those sort of central cities in the eastern side and then southern Texas. So it's going to be interesting to see sort of where the need is, where people really want to kind of explore these apprenticeships are and actually implement them and do them. Plus side, I think a lot of where the demand is, they tend to be apprenticeship friendly states. So, you know, fingers crossed, we keep going, keep pushing, and things can go forward. Which brings us to, so some of the things that we've learned in our sort of journey to try and get more AI machine learning apprenticeships and kind of really convince companies to start going on them. Unfortunately, what we hear is that hiring managers in these subject areas kind of see a hierarchy of like quality and risk, where it's somebody with a master's degree, then a bachelor's degree, then an intern, and then an apprentice. Now, don't get me wrong, I very firmly disagree with this on every possible way and will defend it till I'm blue in the face. But this is what we're hearing from industry. And so I think it's honestly going to take a lot to kind of shift that perspective. And, you know, may there be more people that help with that. I think the federal government has certainly a lot that they could do with that. Anyway, the other thing, so prompt engineer, I don't know, if maybe 18 months ago, everyone's like, oh, prompt engineer is the new role, it's the new thing, there's going to be 20,000 jobs in 2024. Well, there weren't, and there aren't, and it has not taken off. People still call it machine learning engineer. They just have changed the job description, and they want people to know how to do prompting and fine tuning and that sort of stuff. Honestly, I think it's a mismatch. You do not, like if you look at a skills analysis, you don't need an advanced degree or extensive machine learning experience to be able to prompt and tune a model. But it's what employers are asking for. So tension there. We also see companies still want degrees. Even if they say they don't, they still hire for degrees. Other things we've learned, the number of senior machine learning engineering roles vastly outweighs the supply of talent. This is just a sheer pipeline problem. Right, like the demand now does not match the number of roles that were open 5 years ago for entry-level machine learning, and it doesn't match the number of graduates coming out of any kind of CS degree. The other thing we found, unfortunately, is apprenticeship is not a word that goes down well, and we don't know what to do with that. The other interesting thing that's particular to the Valley is that startups, like AR startups in particular that have venture money, they tend to need advanced talent. Right, a lot of them are too young to need sort of mass talent at that machine learning level, and that they're hiring people for a very specific role with a very specific experience, and that's understandable. Doesn't solve a lot of the problems. So until they get to a point where they're really scaling, I don't know if it'll be as easy to work with, particularly like venture-backed startups for this. And then the last thing I had for you, these were the updates that came in last minute. Multiverse, which is one of the large providers, was one of the large providers of apprenticeships. They have pulled out of the United States entirely. It was only announced a couple of days ago, I believe. That's huge. They spent millions and millions of dollars and could not get it to work in the tech space, which is interesting. The other thing is that there was the executive order on the safe trustworthiness and responsible development and use of AI that came out only a couple of days ago, I want to say. And of all the initiatives they have in there for the United States and the AI, there is $0 going towards apprenticeships. And I hope that changes. But again, state of affairs that I wanted to share with you guys. So I think that's where we are. Hopefully we gave you some food for thought and certainly food for discussion.
Yeah, that's a great presentation, Jennifer. Thank you. If anyone wants to speak, please use the raised hand function. I'll be happy to recognize you. Rick.
Yeah, so this very much jives with what I would expect, and I think you did a really nice job of organizing this. I've actually in one of my more recent tech jobs. So I came from tech, and I'm now applying the experience I had of hiring tons of people to this direction. And apprenticeships independent of AI. You mentioned the word apprenticeships, and it's challenging for tech, but people, especially in Silicon Valley, there's just sort of a pedigree orientation. It was actually probably a little bit of a pedigree thing that made it challenging for 42 back in the day. And but 42 is cool because as I've had it explained to me from people we hired from 42. It's actually like a 4-year degree, just with a very deep focus on computer science. And so there's a lot of prerequisites, I'm imagining, that people have taken before they enter into that curriculum that you described as part of your apprenticeship angle. And so what you're doing is actually preparing, essentially the equivalent of college grads for these careers, and actually doubling down on the CS part of it. So they're especially rich in their skills, and they have really applied talent. So you're coming from a really interesting angle. It's a little different from the angle that a lot of us, or at least I've been focused on, but I think just looking around the room in terms of trying to even, get to people that don't have access to a 4-year degree, and, might be coming from more challenging circumstances. But but just seeing the challenges you're facing with the population and the education that your people have is super enlightening. I want to have an offline conversation with you independently, but I think the question I wanted to get a sense of how much you see that point you made at the end about how companies are not ready to do scale, so they're only hiring these senior top level people, and that is consistent with the way I see it. But at the end of the day, some of these AI companies are going to pop. They're going to explode and be wildly successful, and we could all make bets on which of those they will be. And at that point, they're not necessarily going to need everybody to have that be in the category of development. And then you start getting closer to the embedding and at scale. And my feeling is that if we can identify even a couple of companies that are really mindful of that and ready to scale at the sort of embedding level, that's where we don't necessarily have to have a 4-year program that preps these people, but that they could just learn those core skills without a college degree and be highly qualified. And you're nodding, so I'm thinking I'm on the right track, but obviously we're still speculating. So I'm just curious what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, so I would agree. I think also, we have to remember that, most businesses in the US are small businesses, right? Yes, it's California and we're dominated by tech in headlines. But I think if you look at the workforce, there's a significant amount in tech-related roles, but it's also going to get to a point where smaller businesses, medium-sized businesses are asking the question of, how do I implement AI for my company? What on earth does that mean, and what does that look like? And I think it's two parts. Is that I don't think, the sort of ecosystem and startup ecosystem has finished building the tools for startups, right, that are actually going to work. I think we're still quite at the young stages of that. But, a lot of those small and medium-sized companies can't afford to pay the 600K salaries or 300K salaries that big companies do for machine learning talent. So I think there is going to be a massive amount of opportunity there. And I think, Orion, you've seen a lot of success with this with like smaller and medium-sized companies, not for AI roles. Obviously, like big companies are still hiring. Like the Salesforce has spent millions of dollars investing in artificial intelligence, and it's really, I think, fundamentally changing their business. So yeah, they're hiring a lot of machine learning. LinkedIn, same thing. Google, same thing. I mean, they've always been hiring machine learning. So there are big companies that are taking off, but they're not really great necessarily at saying yes to apprenticeships and actually doing them or changing how they hire necessarily. So I think they're gonna just take a while, and they're beasts to work with, and they've got a lot of bureaucracy, let's be honest. So trying to sign any deals with them is difficult. So yeah, things are growing and changing, and we're just gonna see how we go and what happens.
Thanks, Rick. Great question. Deborah?
Hi, let me start my video. Sorry to be late. Yeah, I think what you're saying and what Rick is commenting is multi-sector. The interesting part is that, and as you mentioned in California and other places, the big growth is in the accelerator industry and the creators, and they are just not equipped to deal with apprenticeship, and they do need that senior level that you're talking about. But what we are starting to see in the advanced manufacturing sector, and I'm wondering if you see this, is the companies that, particularly in the aerospace and space field, are finally opening their eyes to the fact that the pipeline isn't there. And while they do need the more senior levels, they are finally opening their eyes because of the retirement tsunami, because of just general demand. And they're starting to open their eyes to apprenticeships. So I think the question becomes, AI and machine learning are going to be in every single sector. And to get that message across, to get that learning, even if it's at a smaller level, to build it into every apprenticeship that we continue to evolve. And even as we revise our apprenticeships, to add AI might also help. Because obviously, even if it's at the basic level, they have to know. And I'm just wondering, I mean, a pie in the sky idea might be if we could figure out a way to build fab labs, multi-regional fab labs that could be teaching these skills, something in the San Diego and something in, Orange County, LA, working up at least our state. I don't know where the money would come from, if there are private trusts or what have you that see the need in AI or AI organizations to actually build a hub or hubs. And I wonder if that's something that's worth kind of keeping in mind as a potential solution.
So it's very interesting you say that, because the executive order that was just signed, one of the things that it has done is renewed money for the excellent track, which is essentially experiential learning, like expanding experiential learning opportunities in advanced technologies. That's like what it is for. And one of those categories for experiential learning is apprenticeships. But it's hard to get, and it's I don't know if it comes from the National Science Foundation. I do not remember exactly, but it is one of those more research-based ones. So there's a part where you need a principal investigator, right? You can't just say, I want to run an apprenticeship program. It's that you are essentially doing a research project, and part, like the execution of that project, is that you run apprenticeships, but you have to produce a study. And so the other interesting thing is that while you have this executive order that's come out, you have the Chips and Science Act, of which a large part is advanced manufacturing and regional hubs, right? There's also the, I think, big regional hubs funding, not necessarily tied to Chips and Science Act, that also came out. So there's so much happening across the US all at once in these subject areas. And I think it's totally worth exploring, because I'm like, the money is the money can be there if it's done in the right subjects with the right people and in things that are kind of working and growing for the US economy. The interesting thing for me about Chips and Science Act is I'm like, okay, you want to make more chips, but you also need more programmers and that need to understand chips. So, and then, you know how to use them and build them. So anyway, totally down. Let's go for it, in my opinion. We've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge, and also because all of these sources are so hard to gather, to understand. You know what that you mentioned that there's so many different resources, but how do you compile them and make them so that people have easier access to understanding, no less to to doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Temple, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I have a comment on this stuff is that most people are impatient. Okay, we're in the country of we want it now, we want to see it now, we want instant gratification. And per my knowledge, with my technical background, or used to have a technical background, all of these elements that you listed in your chart or screens, each one of them is difficult. Okay, each one of them requires time to learn and to fully understand. Okay, and to fit that into a nice module, you really have to have things set up. Okay, like I agree with your comment, and then you have to piece in a program or piece in a need and then pursue it that way, and then you'll get the funding. Okay, I perfectly agree with that. Okay, but the thing is that each of these things take time, each element takes time, and the understanding of this stuff takes time. I know because I had many friends who were in computer science back in the day, and where these things were first coming out, and I said, this isn't for me. It's for you, but it's not for me. I mean, you have to learn so much stuff in there. I mean, each element in itself if you really want to be good in it, you have to put a lot of time and thinking into it. And each element would take at least months, if not 2 years. So that's why I do understand it's a master's, and then it goes backwards to being an apprentice. Okay, so the expectation of the nation is that, oh, AI, it's very quick and it's very powerful, but it takes a lot of conglomeration of science and technology to make it that way. Okay, and we're not at that point yet. Okay, I mean, if you want to test AI, just go into Google Translate. Okay, that's the same program that the large language models are based. And you can input your language that and try to translate it and see whether it's accurate, and you find most of the time it's not. Okay, and that's where we're at. And the instant gratification part is just not there. Okay, but the use cases are. Okay, you can think of a very good use case. You can basically set up a good apprenticeship program. Actually, I have an idea, but I don't want to present it because I think it's bad for mankind. But it's a very good idea, and you get a lot of funding and a lot of money for it. But then the thing is, it's not good for mankind. And if you read my LinkedIn profile, I go for things that progress mankind rather than destroy it. So anyways, that's my input as a apprenticeship member.
Thank you, Temple. Jennifer, did you have a response to that?
I think what I'd say is we would love to also have pre-apprenticeships. And I think there's a huge role for pre-apprenticeships to allow for that time. And I think also for collaboration, right? That there's a lot of people across California or organizations and stuff who can also work and run apprenticeships, or sorry, pre-apprenticeships, that have connections to the right populations, and that again, that just allow for time to learn concepts until they get to like an apprentice level where they can go on. Yeah.
Great. Tim.
All right. Hi. So Jennifer, your presentation, you kind of outlined a lot of the difficulty of companies kind of accepting the apprentice level, talent. And if I heard it right, I believe your model is having companies essentially pre-fund the apprenticeship as a pipeline to employment at their company. Is that correct? Okay.
Largely, yes. Yeah.
So my question, I guess, is like, is this AI apprenticeship already active? Like, do you have apprentices already participating in this?
No, because none of the companies that we've spoken
Gotcha.
with or tried to speak with have agreed to it. We've come this close, and then there were layoffs.
Gotcha. That's kind of like the same thing with where I'm at. We're the crop organization. It's kind of a pipeline to tech careers for mainly tech sales and like UX design, and kind of the whole model of building this program was to kind of pipeline people and have partnerships with organizations, but it's kind of that same difficulty. Nobody wants to gamble on the apprentice level or the formerly incarcerated or whatever disadvantaged group. I don't know.
It's hard.
I guess we just got to stick to like prove that the talent's there. I don't know.
So, formerly incarcerated, particularly, it's hard, and I, have tried. I spent a long time talking with oh, my name's totally blank. Kenyatta and Next Chapter. There we go. And they said the same thing. And honestly, what I would love to see is actually there be entrepreneurs who start companies who maybe themselves are formerly incarcerated, and that they just go out. I would love them to create like multiple unicorn companies, and they just hire. And they almost say, you know what, I'm just only going to hire people who, I don't think they can. That's probably not a great idea for the company, but to say like, this is how we're going to change things, and that they build great companies that are super profitable in the AI space or in other spaces even, that I think would be great. And I would love to see that get funding and get invested, because it does work. But it's hard to get buy-in for that area specifically. And I know JFF, actually Jobs for the Future, is just at their conference. They have an entire center. If you guys don't know them or haven't worked with them, it's probably worth reaching out. But it's on exactly this. So yeah, they have some funding and support available for these kinds of, for like what you guys are doing. So it might be worth connecting with them if you haven't already.
Can you type that in the chat, that contact?
Yes. Let me Google it quickly and get the exact name of their center.
Thank you.
Rick, I see you have a question in the chat. Could you voice that so everybody can?
Yeah, I mean, first I would just say that we don't want to conflate the problems with tech apprenticeships with the unique challenges of AI apprenticeships. I mean, there are the same resistance that you're talking about isn't unique to AI. It's just basically pedigree in software culture for the most part, is the way I read it. But the question I've added was, what are people's thoughts on AI safety as an entry point for apprentices, especially for the traditionally underrepresented groups who are already at high risk of discrimination? So my point being there that you don't like, that's where humans really can come in handy. And I don't necessarily think it's quite prompt engineering, but it's where things are going wrong. It's almost like QA of these systems, but with an actual human eye that's thinking hard about that, that's actually aware of, say, microaggressions or things that your typical white male engineer that's working in their silo is not really conscious of, but is ripe for, if AI is going to take off in a good way for our society, that those are exactly the kind of personalities that we would like to have at the table to help make that safety work the way we want it to.
So I start with a comment, and then certainly other folks welcome to come in. The K4 Center just, I think, either received or committed $1.5 million for this exact subject. And that was also, that was part of the executive order announcement that came out a couple of days ago. So that's news hot off the press. So they haven't done anything yet with it, but they're looking to in that specific area.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, like that, they're sort of the soul of this space, and they do seem to get funding, and it's just going to be interesting how that makes its way out into the kinds of things we're trying to do.
I wanted to call attention, thanks, Rick. I wanted to call attention to Orion's note in the chat where he said that his organization had a very successful cohort of data analyst apprenticeships with all small businesses, which may be a preview of how AI apprenticeships could catch on at smaller organizations. So that might be something worth watching. Thank you, Orion. So I have a question, Jennifer, for you. So what's your advice for someone, a job seeker or a student who's super excited about this area, knows about what the great work that Qwasar is doing and wants to go now into the apprenticeship? What would you advise them given what's happening out there in the industry?
Okay, interesting. So one of the things we've worked quite closely with LinkedIn, and one of the things we've heard is that they actually find it difficult to get talent that's ready for their AI machine learning apprenticeship. Right, like they have the roles, which means that there's an opportunity for the talent. I think what they're seeing is like people who don't actually learn the predictive part, the algorithms part. They haven't done like the real computer science fundamental part. They're not really great at actual programming or software architecture, and so they're actually lacking the kind of core skills that LinkedIn's hiring for the machine learning engineers. And instead, it's more like, oh, I've look at this app that I've built on LLM APIs, and that they're like, oh, I'm very interested in machine learning. And it's like, okay, again, building something on top of an API or an existing tool is not the same thing as you are actually building algorithms and prediction systems and that sort of stuff. And so to me, that screams opportunity, right? If this is a space that folks want to get into, is that I would say you got to look at what are the job descriptions. Where we start every time is what are people actually hiring for? What is the list of job descriptions? Take that. Honestly, you could put it into ChatGPT and say, give me a very detailed breakdown, skill by skill, of like, what does this translate to? I'd be looking at what are the technical interview questions that are getting asked for machine learning engineering roles in your geographic area, right? Like I say public knowledge in the sense of you can Google it, find out, look on Reddit or Glassdoor, all sorts of stuff. So you get an idea for what are the kinds of questions that you might face in the interview. And I'd say that's your endpoint, right? That's, the output for where you need to be. And then essentially you got to work backwards and say, where am I today? And what's the skill sets that I'm missing? And then how do I learn those things? People learn in different ways. So I'd be asking, like, how do you learn best, first of all? And like, what's going to work for you? I think there's some must-haves. You absolutely must have a technical portfolio. There's no 7 ways about that. You need to have at least 3 projects, but preferably 4, that show the breadth and depth of what you're capable of, and that all of them deal with different parts of, if not the entire like machine learning and data lifecycle process. Like you need to show that you can deliver software start to finish for the entire cycle for a machine learning project, ideally in the industry that you want to go into. Right. So that alone is like a huge amount of work of what you need to do to just have a technical portfolio. You need to have some professional experience, right? You need to show that you are not no work experience whatsoever, right? That's a very, very hard leap to go from absolutely nothing and no technical portfolio. Like you just will not get interviews. You need to be able to interview. That means you need to do behavioral interviews and you need to do technical interviews. And technical interviews, practicing that does not mean leak code. It means that you actually you need to experience talking with another human being and practice that, and practicing the questions that you're going to get asked. Like, it's a skill. Like, it's a really difficult skill to learn, being a great technical interviewee, let alone an interviewer. That's a different skill. And so build up, start with simpler questions and practice interviewing them. You got to think, you got to talk, and you have to code all at once. It's difficult. So difficult for any human. So you have to practice them, and then you basically need to work up to kind of the level that companies are hiring at. And then I think you should network. I think you should spend time going to meetup groups, not on this subject area, but on like actual machine learning subject areas where they talk about really techie nerdy stuff and algorithms and all the tools they use and what models and what's their confidence intervals and what was their accuracy and predictions and their optimization, and just meet people. And I think it's a long journey as well. You're going to have to muster a whole bunch of motivation and determination and just, you do not give up. But people succeed and they make it, no problem. So I think as long as you're, training to the level where companies hiring and the demand is there, the jobs are there, I think there's a really good opportunity.
I feel as if you've just given kind of a curriculum for a kind of a pathway project to kind of let people know here's the road forward, maybe before they contact you about your particular apprenticeship.
I mean, that's what I do. If that was the advice that, that's what I give to myself or very close friends or whatever, that's what I'd say. Like, you have to, that's what it's going to take to get into it. Yeah. And it's a lot, yes. And I think that was Temple's point. It's a lot.
Well, as I said, one of your goals today was to kind of bring us a good dose of reality. So that's important. I have another question. What do you see as, get your crystal ball out if you could, and just say, what's the tipping point for companies? When can you predict, weeks, months, whatever, when they'll say, okay, we're ready? Will there be flooding rushing to your door to get the talent?
Interesting. I think when they're desperate enough for talent. And it's very hard to say when that is, because I think it's realistically somewhat dependent upon like the economy, which is tied to interest rates and, how companies and people are spending money, and whether they're spending money on AI tools or not. So I think it's going to be tricky to know when that tipping point is going to be. I should probably have read Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point. Maybe I should do that and then answer your question, Luther. That'd probably be a better way to go. I'm sure some of you have read it. Probably you guys could actually give a better answer than me.
Well,
that's a good question.
I'll keep in touch with you and maybe get you back. That would be great. Before I turn it over to Anita to wrap us up, Rick, I just wanted to point out, Rick put a note in the chat about a book that his colleague Mike Roberts has written. So just wanted to check that out if you can.
Yeah, I mean, it literally echoes everything Jennifer said, except for the 3 projects in the industry sector that you're trying to go into. But it talks about the networking. It's a super easy read. It's like an hour or 2 read, and I think it's something that most people in industry know is common sense, but people who are looking for jobs don't really even have a sense of 80% of what's in there. So it's really a nice brand new resource.
That's great. That aligns well. Thank you, Rick. And thank you, Jennifer. This is fabulous. Can't wait to get you back. Anita.
Thank you, Jennifer. This was fantastic. We'll be loading this video up to our YouTube channel very soon. If you aren't already, I know some of you found us through the Meetup group. I put a link in the chat for a form for you to fill out to let us know what you thought about today's session. You can also add your email to the email list for for updates on future group meetings. Our Next one, normally we're on the fourth Wednesday of every month via Zoom, but we're really trying to do an in-person meeting for Apprenticeship for August. So long time coming, fingers crossed that actually happens. Location TBD, but it's most likely going to be August 20th or August 22nd. So get on our email list, join our meetup group. We'll keep you posted, all the details there. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We're very excited to have had you here, Jennifer. Thank you for all that really helpful information. You could perhaps put your email in the chat if you're okay with folks reaching out to you. Otherwise, we will forward any questions that come to us your way.
Absolutely. This was so much fun, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jennifer.
And thanks to all of our first timers. Great to see you here. Hope to see you at another apprenticeship.
Yeah. Thanks. Yes. All right. Have a great night, everyone.
Have a great night.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.